In this video, we're going to create a new vendor. So a vendor obviously is a business partner that you purchase things from. And in SAP, that is handled through the materials management, the MM module. So to get there, I am going to close my menu back up from what I was doing before. And we're going to go to materials management. So we'll open up logistics, then materials management, purchasing, master data, vendor. We're going to create a central vendor in this case, but you can see there are different ways that you can set vendors up. And create XK01. Now notice that there is change in display right near this vendor. And this is the case in SAP for a lot of items that you work with. You will find where you create it or where you initially enter it in one location in your menu choice. And then the options to change it or to display what you've already done are real close by. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind as you work with SAP. XK01, I can also key in right here. Since I think I'm the first person to use this screen in this particular instance, it takes a minute to compile. And now it tells me, okay, you want to create a business partner, what type? And this is going to be an organization, not an individual. All right. And then you can configure these in your settings for your ERP to determine how you treat persons, organizations, and groups differently with regard to your workflow. So now I've got a new organization, business partner I want to create. And you can see I've got a create F5 vendor FLV N00 new in the BP role, so business partner role. So this is something to keep a good eye on as you're working your way through vendors. We're going to set up, we may set up multiple roles for different business partners. So one of the first things we need to do is give our business partner an ID. So we'll call this business partner 7141, and then my two numbers. Now, you want to make sure that you follow the instructions and naming and numbering conventions in your assignment, but certainly in an organization, you would have some kind of a convention that you're following as well. So make sure you know what you're supposed to key in for yours. We're going to set up the grouping with external number assignment, the very first one you see there. And then we've got the address tab already set up, and we've got the BP role, F5 vendor FLV N00 new. So the news there just to let us know this is a new role for this particular vendor. So now we go back to the title is going to be a company, and we'll say the name. We'll just give it our last name, and then go down to our search term and make that the last two digits. You can add something else if that would be useful for you. We're going to set up our house number, and in honor of the original author of these assignments, we call it Glen Street, and the house number is 304. Now, note that we have all of this in separate fields, and this is more or less how postal databases separate the address. And they may even have additional fields like which direction of the street and so forth, or whether the name of the street, and then whether it's a street or a boulevard or an avenue separately. So you can see we're doing a little bit of that here by separating the street name and then the actual number of the building. All right. So we enter our postal code, and this will be in Chico, California. So that's in the US and state California. Now note, sometimes you may not see all the fields you want. You can expand right here and see a little bit more. So you can see that's in Pacific Standard Time. What if I change that to Eastern Standard Time? You can see I get a little bit of a little error here. It says Eastern Standard Time doesn't seem right there. So I'll change it back to PST, Pacific Standard Time, and then it's okay. Okay, we'll go to Vendor General Data, and that's over here. If you don't see it, you may need to scroll over using the little arrows here that allow you to move back and forth between the available tabs in this data entry screen. So Vendor General Data, and we'll give this vendor the external ID of 114127. Again, in your case, you want to make sure that you use the number as your organization has it set up, or the number that you see in the assignment. Now I can click on the company code here and verify which company I want to have this vendor assigned to. That'll be my company. You'll want to make sure you put your company number in there. All right, got my company code locked in by pressing enter. Now I can go down here and set up my reconciliation account. So what's a reconciliation account? Well, it basically tells us which subledger we're working with, subledger account. So in this case, it's 300,000, which is payables trade accounts. So we may have vendors that are trade vendors. We may have other vendors that are for other things, maybe utilities, other, administrative operations and things like that. And then I need to set up my sort key, which is 001. We're sorting by posting date. Now I can press enter, and you can see that the posting date shows up. I can now move over here to payment transactions and enter my payment terms, which are 0001. And we can see what that means. Tolerance group is going to be GBI. And you might remember what tolerance groups were from a previous assignment or previous work you've done in SAP. At this point, I can save my vendor, but I'm not going to leave the screen. Oh, I got an error message. My language key does not have an entry. I forgot to select my language, which does need to be English. Or I suppose you could set up any language you want. So now we save, but we're not done yet because we want to create another role for this same new vendor. And you can see right now the title up at the top of the screen says we're displaying that business partner. So we want to switch, and we can use this toggle here to switch, or the F6 key to toggle between change and display. So we want to go from display back to change. And now we're going to change this organization. All right. And we will select this drop-down list and change it to vendor purchasing. We're creating a new role, FLVN01. And up here, we can click on purchasing. We want to do that to set up some more purchasing information. And we will set up the purchasing organization for your company's purchasing group. In our case, the purchasing organization is the same US code that our company code is. Other companies may use a different convention. All right, so now I can press enter. And now I'm going to go down here into the purchasing data tab. And what I want to find is the order currency and the payment terms. And I've actually found that by clicking general data and then coming back to purchasing, That helps clean up this screen a little bit so that the information I want to see becomes available. So now I want my order currency to be USD, and my payment terms are going to be 0001, which is payable immediately, due net. At that point, I can click Save, or I can press Enter just to verify everything on this screen. Everything looks good. I click Save, and my changes have been saved for my new vendor. So that's setting up your vendor. We can now exit this screen, go back to our main SAP menu, and figure out what it is we would like to do next.